Now, earlier on this year, I was due to travel to Berlin in Germany, and I actually go there fairly often, but I'd never learnt the language. And so this time I decided that I was going to learn a little bit of German so that I didn't have to speak English all the time, and I could be conversational and chat with people in German when I was there. So I did my usual trick. I set about learning German the way I would any other language. I went to a bookshop, I bought books, and I started sitting down to study every day to learn German. But I had a problem. I was extremely busy at the time, and I didn't have hours every day or even every week to devote to learning German. And besides, becoming totally fluent wasn't the aim. I just wanted to be able to get by and enjoy using German when I was there. And so I started to think, well, what is the quickest, most efficient way that I can kind of get these basic phrases that I need in order to be able to communicate in German and enjoy myself? And it was around that time that I decided to give the Mosalingua app a try. Now, I'd heard about it for some time, but I'd never used it because of the slightly unusual languages that I'd been learning in recent years. But I picked up the app, I got a copy, I started using it, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised with the results. So in this video, I'd like to give you a little rundown of the features and why you might like to use it. So what is Mosalingua? Well, on a very basic level, it's a smartphone app that teaches you useful phrases in the language you're learning. The app then helps you remember those phrases using a flashcard system powered by spaced repetition, which is something that I'm a big fan of. So in other words, you learn new phrases and then you memorize them. Nothing new, you might say. True, there's nothing new about useful phrases, flashcards, or spaced repetition, but the strength of Mosalingua and what it does really, really well is that it gets the basics right. What you've got here in this app is a selection of very useful phrases that you're actually going to want to use and the entire ecosystem you need to actually go and learn them. So what this means for me is the fact that you've got a good flashcard system that's user-friendly and works well. You've got audio and images that accompany these flashcards, and you've got complete control over which phrases you study and which you don't. Now, I completely accept that flashcards and spaced repetition are not for everybody, and in fact I usually even recommend that you make your own digital flashcards so that you can have more control over the learning process. But the thing about apps is that when you make them well and they do the job that they set out to do, which is rare, then they can prove to be an incredibly useful language aid or language tool that you can always have with you in your pocket and that you can use however busy you are so that you can make the most of those spare few minutes you might have throughout the day. So let's dive in now and have a look at some of the features in a bit more detail. When you first launch the app, you're met with a basic level test that gives you a rough assessment of your level. Now, you can always change this afterwards, but it's a good example of how the creators really make an effort to ensure you're learning the right stuff and not waste your time on phrases that are too easy or too hard. Once you've selected your level, the app then creates a personalised plan for you based on your results. Now, there are quite a lot of very good things about the spaced repetition side to the Mosalingua app, and in fact on their website they go into a lot of detail about the science behind that. But personally, I much prefer to judge an app on the actual usefulness of it, and more importantly, whether I'm actually going to want to open it up and use it and enjoy using it every day. So there are a lot of useful features. For example, it always uses full sentences rather than individual words, which is great for actually developing the ability to speak. By default, you study 5 cards at any one time, but you can always click plus more to increase this by 5 more cards, thereby giving you control over the level. Within the app itself, you have the option to record yourself on the card too and directly compare your pronunciation with the native speaker, and you can re-record as much as you like until you get it perfect, which is a very nice touch. Each card is presented to you in various different ways. So for example, you've got a card with a sentence in either English or the target language, or a card where you write the phrase, or a jumbled up sentence where you select the words, and you also have the option to self-assess, where you select how easy or difficult it was. Now you can also take a step back into the useful lists section where you can actually view all of the cards you're currently learning, or if there are specific sentences you want to learn, then you can also add your own. Now, would you actually use all these features? Who knows? But what's impressive is that they're all well chosen and practical learning aids, which I think demonstrate the creators know what they're doing when it comes to language learning. In terms of the content itself, you begin with straightforward language based on the results of the level test, but as you continue to progress through the app, you gradually unlock more materials like proverbs, fun sentences, and other general things of interest. These introduce more and more everyday vocabulary that you might not get with a traditional course. Now, if you're familiar at all with my approach to language learning, you'll know that I'm always banging on about the importance of dialogues and seeing language in context. So wouldn't a flashcard app like Mosalingua actually deprive you of all that context that you actually need? Well, as it turns out, the answer is no. Inside the app, there are also a series of dialogues, and these are split up by topic and by level so that you can select the ones that you want to learn. You can click a button to add the transcription and even the translation if you want. But here's what I really like. You can also select any part of the dialogue and add it to your flashcards, which then becomes automatically added to your learning plan. Pretty cool. There's also one interesting new feature that's recently been added, which is the hands-free mode. Now, you can probably guess what this is. This lets you play any or all of the cards that you're learning in audio format. So cards are played in both the target language and in English, which is perfect for when you're traveling, running, or in the gym. Now remember, any app or any language learning resource, come to think of it, is never going to be a complete solution to learning a language by itself. So if you do use Mosalingua, you are going to have to supplement it with other things and other approaches, the usual things that I talk about here on this channel, on the blog, and on the podcast. But because Mosalingua allows you to choose exactly what you study by topic, whether it's like in the restaurant, general conversation, or transport, I've actually found that it's a very, very good complement to more traditional study methods whereby you can just supplement what you're already studying with more practical, useful, real-world things from the app itself. So all in all, Mosalingua is a mightily impressive app. I really enjoyed using it, and I definitely recommend you give it a try if it sounds like your kind of thing. Now, the full version, I believe, costs around $5, which is cheaper than one of those large Starbucks things that you get. And for that, you get full lifetime access and unlimited access to the content. So it's a pretty good deal. So to give the Mosalingua app a try, simply click here for iPhone or here for Android, or else look in the description below to find all the links. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. If you're into language learning, I release 2 brand new episodes every week that help you become a better learner and become fluent in the language that you're learning faster. To subscribe to the podcast, simply look again for the link below. I hope that review was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.